So Magic Johnson's still the greatest point guard, right? Right? Ah,
It's showtime, folks!
Okay, so maybe since 1995, Magic Johnson has been regarded as the greatest point guard of all time, which makes sense. I mean, he's a 5-time NBA champion, 3-time Finals MVP, 3-time regular season MVP, 12-time All-Star, and had 9 All-NBA first teams. Also, did I mention they accomplished most of this in the 1980s, one of the game's greatest eras? I mean, this had a talent pool such as Clyde Drexler, Isaiah Thomas, Hakeem Olajuwon, Patrick Ewing, Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, Dr. J, Moses Malone, and Larry Bird. And even though Magic and Larry Bird were absolutely the faces of the NBA in the 80s, after beating Larry Bird in 2 out of the 3 finals that they met up against, it can be argued that Magic Johnson was the best player in the NBA in the 1980s. And since his retirement, he has been a lock as a top 10 greatest player of all time, for myself included. Okay, so now let me talk about Steph. Since 2015, has there been a more influential player in basketball than Stephen Curry? The man's quite literally the face of the revolution of the three-point era that we're in currently. He's the reason basketball has changed and has made it to where every position must have their player have a jump shot. And all of that, and I mean all of it, can be pointed right back to the mid to late 2010 Warriors. Steph Curry is not only 2-time MVP, but he's also to this day the only unanimous MVP in NBA history. And that year that he did it, he also joined the 50-40-90 club. He's a 3-time NBA champion, 8-time All-Star, and 4-time All-NBA first team. Now these numbers sound fantastic, but they become special when you remember the player that you're talking about is 6'2" and weighs 185 pounds, and that's not a pure muscle. He's not the fastest or strongest player on the court, but he's damn near the most skillful one when he's on the court. His greatness a lot of times gets limited to just calling him the greatest shooter of all time. Just calling him the greatest shooter of all time, in retrospect, is just a fraction of his greatness. To me, Steph Curry is in the top 5 most impactful players in NBA history. I'm talking among the likes of Shaq, MJ, LeBron, and others. When Steph Curry is on the court, he's the primary objective and responsibility of the other team's defense. Even when he has Draymond and Klay, everyone in the building still has their eyes on Steph. He might be the most dangerous off-ball player in NBA history. If Curry is setting a pick, the player who is stuck on a set pick must stay with Curry. Because even a micro fraction of air is enough for Curry to drain a shot in your face. He also might just be the most accurate half-court shooter in NBA history. Honestly, only Curry can make logo shots feel like they're almost guarantees every time. And it can be argued by the end of his career, with possibly another NBA championship, you can say that no one has done what Curry has ever done at the point guard position. He's accomplished pretty much everything he could do and more. And he's done this at a level that others are trying to replicate, but none can duplicate. He just might be the greatest point guard of all time. But there was a point guard pre-2015 that was the best in the NBA. And he never fell off. I love Chris Paul. It is insane for me to think how much Chris Paul has achieved in the NBA since 2005, and also just how much he hasn't. Besides 4 All-NBA first teams, 5 second teams, and 1 third team, he has 7 first team All-Defense, 2 second All-Defensive teams, And I say all of these things because you're going to be looking for MVPs, championships, and more. The only thing he really has is a Rookie of the Year award. Now, you'll have a lot of people say that Chris Paul is the best point guard of all time, but he's not top 10, or he's better than Magic, but he's not better than Curry. And that's kind of the weird paradox that you find yourself when you're talking about Chris Paul. Because while some of those arguments have validity to them, there's also so many factors and more than enough reasons that side with Chris Paul and calling him the greatest point guard of all time. But let's get back to the Magic Man. So Magic's case in this argument should be the easiest, seeing that he's already retired, his record, legend, and story has already been told. Yet there's still a big factor in play, and that's the fact that Magic had to retire early. Now, I'm not saying that this should in any way disqualify Paul and Curry's argument as being the best point guard, because it clearly doesn't. Magic played 12 years in the NBA, plus in his last season, not only did he make an All-NBA team, but he would go on to face the Bulls in the finals that year. And not for the unfortunate fact that he contracted HIV, there's still a good chance that Magic doesn't retire from basketball in 1991 and still has a good 4, maybe 5 years left in him. And looking at what he accomplished in the 80s, and with the Lakers constantly looking for ways to rebuild around Magic, who knows what happens? Who knows what other records he might set? Who knows what his numbers look like at that point? Now with Curry, there are 2 knocks against him, but I wouldn't say it's the Super Team Warriors, and I wouldn't say it's that he's never won a Finals MVP. I would say it's his peak and the point guard position itself. Best at your position, 6 years is a long time. And I'll explain why. Hakeem, within 2 years, made it to his first finals. LeBron made it to the finals in year 4, but he also put one of the greatest performances in the playoffs against the Pistons in Game 5 in the Eastern Conference Finals that a 22-year-old has ever done. Jordan was already spectacular by year 1. Tim Duncan had possibly the greatest rookie year of all time. But okay, you say that doesn't matter, you only care about the accomplishments. Well, Magic was Finals MVP and he won a championship his rookie year. And Chris Paul was named Rookie of the Year. Tyreke Evans was the Rookie of the Year in Steph Curry's class, and had it not been him, it's more likely that award would have gone to Blake Griffin. What I'm saying is 6 years is a long time to wait when it comes to being considered the greatest at your position. And when it comes to the position itself, the best way I can say is this: Curry doesn't play like a point guard. Now, what I mean is Curry's strengths aren't necessarily being the primary facilitator or the one leading the offense. Of course, therefore, Curry's known better as a combo guard, basically the in-between being a point and shooting guard. But everyone and their mother will call Curry a point guard. It's still what he's listed as. And if you don't think that's important, just keep that in mind. I do have one final note on Curry. I mentioned how it took 6 years for Steph Curry to be called the greatest point guard right now, and also how it took him to get to the heights that he got to. But since then, this 3 championships with 5 finals appearances, it can be argued he was the best player on the best team during that stretch. He was arguably the most well-known and biggest name in the NBA that wasn't called LeBron James. He's the face of the current revolution in today's modern NBA. Oh, and of course, he's the 3-point king, because along with his impact, he just so happens to be the greatest shooter the game has ever seen. There just may be another point guard better than him. The Chris Paul story feels like it's so close to wrapping up. I know he's pushing 37 and he's already played 15 to 16 seasons. But, I mean his last 2 seasons, it feels like he is almost there to the one thing he needs. The one thing he has left to get. If Chris Paul retired today, he would take AI's spot as being known as the greatest player to never win a ring. Truly, that's the only gripe left in his career. He's not only finally made it to the Western Conference Finals, but he also made it to the NBA Finals in his first season with the Suns. For the longest time, the one narrative and biggest one about Paul was the fact that he was injury prone, but was always at the worst moment possible. His 2016 injury in the first round of the Western Conference playoffs against the Trailblazers, He was injured in the first round last year against the Los Angeles Lakers, but can now say this. Chris Paul, in my opinion, has become the benchmark on how to play the point guard position. Remember how I said Curry doesn't really play like a point guard? Well, there may be no one in history who has played the point guard position at a greater essence than Chris Paul. Do you need a leader? That's him. Someone's going to facilitate and make sure his teammates are always in the plane and scoring? CP3's your man. One guy who's a solid to good defender so he can guard the opposing team's best ball handler and fastest player? Paul is more than capable of doing that. So then what about the other two? Well, if you're choosing Magic over CP3, it has to be from the unique standpoint. Magic was truly a point guard. He just also happened to be 6'9", able to guard every position, was a decent rebounder, and a nightmare on every fast break. And if you're taking Curry, it's for the fact that he's going to be your best off-ball threat, has handles good enough to cross up anyone, and no matter what, the attention is always on him and to stop his scoring output. And I can't say that you get those with Paul, but what I can say is this, that when it comes to the game's most important position, you're getting arguably the blueprint of the very best player to play it. Just look at the results. He has been to the playoffs 12 times, he's led the Hornets to the best record the franchise ever had, he helped turn the Clippers from a bottom feeder to a potential finals contender. He helped get the James Harden Rockets closer to the finals than they ever got. He turned a draft lottery team in the OKC Thunder into a playoff team in 1 year, and potentially he might just get the Phoenix Suns to their first championship in franchise history. But yes, let me state the obvious. Chris Paul has blown leads in the playoffs. He was up 2-0 against Giannis and the Bucks in last year's finals. He was up 3-2 against the Spurs in 2008 in the Western Conference semifinals. And he helped lead the Rockets 3-2 against the Super Warriors. Now, these do stain his career, but they also come with more than just that. In the last 4 games of the finals, Giannis put up, some of the craziest games in finals history? And at that time in 2008, Paul was going up against the greatest organization and the previous year champs in the Spurs. And besides his hamstring, the Rockets were beating the Warriors in Game 7 without Paul. And then 27 consecutive missed threes just so happened. Now, it can be and should be argued and said that the success that each team experienced and how far each of those teams made it those years wouldn't be possible without Chris Paul. He's not only the reason, but he could be considered the biggest reason. I know he doesn't have the accolades or team success like Magic and Curry had, but if you're taking solely on how the point guard position is supposed to be played, how you want that one guy on your team that you can trust and rely to help make your team better no matter the circumstances, has anyone played it better than Chris Paul? So, after all that, who do I think the greatest point guard of all time is? Fam, I got no idea.
You suck!
Yeah, I know. Look, I know. That sounds like a cop-out, but holy hell is this close. Each player has such a strong argument that really it just comes down to preference. Whoever you consider to be the best is not wrong or invalid when it comes to these three. Because almost like virtually anything else, it's subjective. But I just wanted to get my thoughts on this conversation. So with all that out of the way, I'm gonna head out. Yo! Cue the outro!